Okay, so
Good evening, everyone.
second one.
I'm Councillor John Campbell, and I'm joined by my colleagues on the Budget Committee, Councillors Francis Nunziata and Councillor Joel Mihevik. We have quorum, so I'd like to call the Budget Subcommittee for Etobicoke, East York, and York Consultations meeting to order. This is one of a series of meetings that are happening across the city to hear deputations on the 2018 capital and operating budgets. This session is taped. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, we're ready to start. And deputants will have 5 minutes, after which time they may be asked questions by the councillors. So the first deputant I have is Yuko Serrano. Just come to the podium here.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Yuko Serrano, and today I would like to talk about the need for affordable childcare. Several years ago, I was working in an adult education program that supported single mothers. I remember clearly one bright woman who completed our program and was ready to start college in September. Late August, she came to tell me that she couldn't get a subsidized spot and she wasn't able to start school. This was my very first experience of disappointment with the city childcare system. And unfortunately, many more came since then. Currently, I'm a volunteer board member at St. Stephen's Community House, a multi-service organization that offers a range of programs including childcare centers. Our childcare revenue is often discussed as a concern at a governance level. I came to learn that the city's subsidy system poses many challenges not only for parents, but also for childcare providers. For example, the city does not confirm the amount of subsidy per child until mid-year, and when it does, it doesn't always cover the full cost of care for the child. This means that the shortfalls that are created and that need to be recovered in some other way or eat into deficits. Also, when the availability of subsidy is limited or closed, enrollment is lower, and so is revenue needed to support the services. Unaffordable childcare has been a major concern for many families with children, and it is about time that the city made a real investment in the system. As a parent of 2 young children at the age of 4 myself, like most parents in a similar situation, childcare cost is the most expensive item in a household budget. Now, I'm fortunate to be in a 2-parent working family with decent jobs, but even then, the cost of childcare is a huge burden for us. And I can only imagine how difficult it must be for families that are waiting on the waiting list not be able to access subsidy. At the very least, I hope that see the city subsidy system to be accessible for all families that qualify when they need it with no waiting list. This will help mothers and fathers of young children, but also allow childcare centers to focus on providing quality service with quality staff. I would also urge the city to take measures to address the general problem of unaffordable childcare for all families. I have spent much of my adult life in Toronto and have been following the city's budget processes for the past years. And I hear about budget freezes, service reductions, and programs that are approved by the council and unfunded. And I said to myself, how is it possible in a city as vibrant, dynamic, and fast-growing as Toronto continues to make an excuse of not having enough revenue to deliver essential services in our community? I and my colleagues were excited about the news of the city's poverty reduction strategy when it was adopted in 2015 by the City Council. I hope the Council will act on it this year and allocate the required resources in the budget. I'm certainly not an expert in city governance, but we do know that the property tax is increasing, and the municipal land transfer tax revenue is also growing. And if the current revenue is not enough to support essential city services, then the Council has the option to consider other revenue tools. In this election year, I hope the City Council decides to make it a priority to support families and those who are most marginalized in our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming, Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
So, just a
Oh,
question.
Councillor
So,
Nunziata.
You are aware that just recently the province made an announcement that they're giving additional funding to the city for childcare?
Right, yes, yeah,
Right.
that was a great announcement.
That was a great
Yes,
announcement.
and we're waiting
yeah.
to see how that's
And you're
rolled out.
also aware that the city is opening up a number of new daycare centers?
Yes, that's also great news as well.
Right. And there's one actually in Ward 11 that's opening, which is going to be the biggest daycare center in the city of Toronto. That's opening up in Mount Dennis. You
Right.
aware of that?
Right. Yes, I
Okay.
heard about all of these changes. That's
Yeah.
really great and welcoming, and I'm hoping that the subsidy would accompany. Because I'm not aware that the subsidy is guaranteed for those centers. So that was my priority.
Yeah. There is one of the, we're opening up a new daycare center in Mount Dennis, which is actually one of the biggest daycare centers
Okay.
that we have in the city with over 100 spaces.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Mihevik has a question.
This is another one. Are you aware, though, that to unlock the $48 million, the city has to put in $2 million?
Sorry for 40.
To unlock, to get the provincial money,
Right.
they won't give it to us unless the city puts in $2 million.
Oh, that I was not.
So that's the piece that we have to decide whether to fund. But I don't think that city council is going to say no to $48 million by not putting in $2 million.
That's right.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I would fully support the city investing in that amount of money to be able to support families.
Right.
Okay, so then the next question is this. The debate really among some folks on the community development and recreation on this committee that deals with childcare is should the first, because this is a multi-year program that the province is funding. In the first year, there are some decisions to be made. Do we fund additional subsidies for people who need subsidies? Or should we be contributing to overall operating costs to level out the playing field across the city? Which do you think is more important, subsidies or as a first step? Eventually, I think it's a 4 or 5 year phase-in for childcare. Which do you think we should start with?
I mean, there obviously two are equally
approaches.
important. I would think that the waiting list, where that exists, and from what I understand, it's not even across the city, the waiting list should be eliminated. So that should be the priority.
The subsidized waiting list.
So that's subsidy for the waiting list. Now, those who don't qualify currently would benefit when the funding goes to the overall operating budget. Is that correct? So that would, also be important because right now the way the city subsidy formula is set up, I don't know how the details, but from my experience, it is set quite high that you have to be that you don't qualify very easily if you have full-time working jobs for two parents, and I think that will make it very difficult for people who work and who have good incomes but still having to pay very expensive daycare costs. So I think that should be also tackled without delay, but definitely the waiting list for the subsidy should be the priority.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
tonight. The next speaker I have is Chera Padovani. Hi, good evening.
Hello.
North Harvest Food Bank.
Yes.
So you've got 5 minutes, and then we may have some questions.
Okay, thank you. My name is Chiara Padovani, and I'm a social worker and lifelong resident of Ward 11. I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to share my thoughts on the preliminary budget. They say if you show someone your mission statement, they'll know what you think. But if you show them your budget, they'll know what you value. Unfortunately, the preliminary budget does not reflect our values as a city, nor does it reflect the promises that Council has made regarding food security, childcare, housing, and transit. I'm here today to ask that you fully fund the poverty reduction strategy. I work at the second largest food bank in the city of Toronto, and I coordinate our network of food banks across the city. Every day, I'm astounded by the tireless dedication of volunteers from across the city who organize food banks in their neighborhoods because they value the basic human right to food and believe everyone deserves access to it in Toronto. Every day, I'm also reminded how prevalent hunger and poverty is in the city. In 2017, there were just shy of 1 million visits to food banks in Toronto. That's a 9% increase since last year. The increased need for food banks in Toronto is a stark indicator of our shortcomings when it comes to addressing poverty in the city. And yet $13.7 million for the poverty reduction strategy is missing from the budget. 1 in 3 food bank users in Toronto is a child. Yet expanding and strengthening the student nutrition program is also missing from the budget. In the introduction to the presentation of the preliminary city budget, we hear about how Toronto is rated #1 city in various categories, including best economy for young people and most livable city. But it fails to mention that Toronto remains the child poverty capital of Canada. With over 1 in 4 children living in poverty, in York South-Weston, where we are right now, 1 in 3 children live in poverty, and in my own neighborhood of Weston, 40% of children live in poverty. I've spoken to countless parents at food banks who struggle to hold down even the most precarious jobs because they don't have access to childcare for their children. Toronto is also the #1 city for most expensive childcare in the country, but that too was left out of the budget presentation. Despite the fact that our childcare system is serving less than 30% of the children who need it, the city's commitment, and Councillor Mihevc talked about this, the city's commitment to funding a modest 20% of the childcare growth strategy is also missing from the budget. With the highest child poverty rate and the highest childcare fees in the country, the city is failing our youngest residents, the very people who depend on us the most. It's time to fund the programs they deserve and the programs they need. I've seen firsthand how important the programs being offered at the York Recreation Centre and Mount Dennis Library are for the children and youth of York South-Weston. Whenever I walk into the rec center or the library, they're always full of people. These are successful programs. We should applaud ourselves because they are successful programs, and the very long waiting lists are an indication of that. They are a testament to how popular they are in neighborhoods like mine, but they are also the reason why we must expand funding to meet the unmet needs of recreation programs in this city. More than half of food bank users say they've gone hungry to pay for rent and TTC fare. Affordable housing is universally defined as spending no more than 30% of your income on housing, which means 1 in 3 households do not have access to affordable housing in York South-Weston and across the city. I myself spend half my income on rent, but the people I serve at the food bank are spending well over 70% of their income on rent alone. It is time to fund affordable housing in the city. After paying rent, the average food bank user has only $7 a day to pay for utilities, food, and transit. Yet council-backed and council-promised transit equity measures are also missing from this budget. Funding 2-hour transfers and especially the low-income fare pass would not only help achieve transit equity in the city, but would also help increase food in neighborhoods like Weston and Mount Dennis, where grocery stores are too far to walk and often require taking more than one bus to get to. It's time to fund transit equity in the city. In conclusion, I'd like to applaud City Council for unanimously passing the poverty reduction strategy and so many other important initiatives that I'm sure we're going to hear more about today. And I'd also like to thank all of my neighbors for coming out and speaking towards and about the city budget. But without funding, the poverty reduction strategy, like so many other plans for the city, will remain nothing more than an empty promise. It's time. Let's fund the poverty reduction strategy entirely and show the people of Toronto that this city values equity, inclusion, and opportunity for everyone. Thank you.
Good timing. Thank you very much. Councillor Mihevc, next question.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments on the poverty reduction strategy. But just the one little area that I wanted to probe a little bit deeper because it hasn't gotten a lot of public attention, and that is library services. What are the first, do you think that Toronto is ready to say all libraries should be open 7 days a week, something like 9 or 9:30 to something like 8 or 9 at night? Is that a good? Do you think that would work in a place like Mount Dennis?
It has
7 days a week.
7 days. Well, Mount Dennis has that Sunday hours,
It does.
in the Mount Dennis Library. Weston is one of the libraries that would benefit from the expansion of Sunday service.
Are you closed on Monday?
Is Weston Library closed on Monday? I don't
Two
remember.
in Ward 11, I don't know. No, it's not?
In Mount Dennis?
Okay, so it's open 7 days a week.
Yeah, and it's always full. So these are programs that people need. If you talk to librarians, they're becoming more and more like social workers because people who need services are going to libraries because they are so accessible. So it's this excellent entry point to connect people with the services they need by keeping the libraries opening and welcoming people to the system and to the services that they need. So expanding that in every neighborhood improvement area would be extremely beneficial. Expanding it to the entire city, I don't know if I'm dreaming, but that would be amazing. But definitely in Weston, and this is, Weston Library is one of the libraries allocated to expand their Sunday service, it would work wonders. And we know, like, that's the thing, is that we know these programs work. City Council knows these programs work because you've approved them. The youth hubs in other libraries, I mean, I don't know of any in York Southwestern that have youth hubs, but we know that those are working too. So expanding them would be expanding best practices. And I feel like you guys know this because you've approved them all, but absolutely we need to have these items and these initiatives and these programs funded in the budget, and right now they are unfunded.
Thank you very much.
Just have a couple of questions. So your food bank, how many, where does your funding come from? United Way, or is it donations, or?
We get funding mostly from donations. So mostly from individual donors.
Right.
Who donate to the food bank. And we do a lot of food raising, which is doing food drives, and a lot of our funding comes from community members.
What about, are there full-time staff?
There are full-time staff, yep.
How many full-time staff?
I wish I could tell you the number. I am one full-time staff member.
I beg your pardon?
I am one full-time staff member,
Oh.
but I don't know how many exactly are.
What's your position there?
I'm the agency relations coordinator.
You're the agency relations coordinator.
So I help
forget what you
coordinate our network of food banks in North Toronto.
Okay. And do you get funding from the city, or do you get funding from the United Way?
Since I'm not in development, the Department of Development, I don't know where all of our funding comes from.
How long have you been with the food bank?
Just under a year.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned the poverty and the states of poverty. I used to be a school trustee, heard this all the time. You know, we know that there's a lot of poverty, child poverty in the schools and, you know, right across the city.
Mm-hmm.
There are different definitions of poverty that the federal, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking to you, but I believe that the federal government has a different definition of poverty than other agencies. So what is your definition of poverty and what it would be in Toronto?
Sure, the definition
Is it an income base? Obviously, it's income-based. What would that be?
The definition I'm using is the low-income measure.
Right, which is what? The low-income cutoff.
Yep.
Does that vary by region, or is that like right across Canada?
Well, it would vary by region. The statistics that I'm citing are from the last 2016 census data.
And so what would that be now, the low-income cutoff? Because you said poverty a lot of times, so I'm trying to understand.
It depends on how many people are in the household. It depends on where they are. But these are statistics that Stats Canada has come out with, and this is the most updated statistics that we have available to the public, and it's from 2016.
Okay, but you don't have it in terms of like a dollar figure. You're not sure.
Well, I can definitely get back to you with that.
Usually, it's by household income.
Yes.
Okay, so you've talked about the 2-hour. You talked about transportation. Obviously, that's very important. Getting around. There's the 2-hour transfer, and then there's going to be the low-income fare, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, will probably come to pass later this year. Would the 2-hour transfer be necessary if we had a low-income fare?
Yeah.
Why?
It would be.
Why?
Because they're serving two different groups of people.
But why should the city serve people who, from a transit standpoint, who are not of low income? Why? I mean, people of higher income.
Well, if you speak to many people who work in food banks, they're going to talk about what we like to call the working poor. So we have people who are on OW and ODSP,
Right.
who are not considered the working poor because they are not working and they're receiving subsidies from the provincial government.
But the low-income fare would apply to the working poor, I would presume.
In its eventual phase-in.
Right.
The first phase will benefit only people on OW and ODSP.
Right.
Later on, if it gets approved and gets continuous funding,
Right.
eventually, yes, it will benefit the working poor. The working poor would benefit from a 2-hour transfer Absolutely, because it's cutting their fares in half for dropping their kids off at daycare, going to the grocery store. It's requiring one fare instead of two.
You know that the provincial government gives the City of Toronto no funding for the operation of the TTC.
And I think that's shameful
Yeah, I do too.
because I believe we are one of the lowest
It's the third largest
subsidized
transportation
transit
system in
systems.
North America, and 63% comes from the fare box.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a provincial election.
Rest assured, Councillor Campbell, I will be fighting these same battles with the province.
Yes, there's a provincial election coming, right. Anyway, thank you for your deputation tonight.
Thank you very much.
Next, I have Mr. Bill Worrell, Oakwood Vaughan Neighborhood Action Partnership. Good evening.
Hello. Thanks for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm a resident and founding member of the Oakwood Vaughan Neighborhood Action Partnership, and I'm actually presently the co-chair. The Oakwood Vaughan has been my community for 34 years, where we raised a family. Both my daughters are eternally grateful for their childhood experiences as public school students in a richly diverse environment. We are a community of socio-economic diversity, and I love my vibrant community. We also have our issues, like many communities. The Toronto Central LHIN, in their 2015 report entitled Central Toronto Community Needs Assessment and Gap Analysis Report, identified a range of health and social issues and a need to address them. Here are a few. The absence of programs, recreation options, and positive spaces for youth, high rates of teen pregnancies and birth rates, and the severe lack of children's programs, including early years and childcare. Low birth weights data indicates poor nutrition rates. The report also identified the need for sexual health, mental health, and women's health programming. We have a higher than average seniors population and a higher than average number of seniors living alone, many of whom are not functionally literate in English and at risk of isolation. There is a lack of community-based, culturally appropriate seniors programming in our community. Higher than average rates of poverty and unemployment are barriers for many of our residents to access programming and services. OVNAP, that's what we call ourselves, has been working hard to get these issues addressed, working with governments. The LHIN has taken helpful steps to enhance relevant primary care services related to some of these health issues. The Toronto City Planning Department has identified Vaughan Road Academy as a, quote, medium potential for new or enhanced recreation services, and the site is a good feasibility fit for recreation services, end quote. We're working with the TDSB regarding the future of Vaughan Road Academy as a community hub and a shared space in collaboration with the city, with the community and the city. Based on community mobilization and working with our city councillor, on November 3rd, 2015, City Council endorsed the document Oakwood Vaughan Strategy Actions. And I think you have the written number of the document, which contains a series of city commitments for community improvement involving a range of departments. Some of these actions have been implemented, which is very positive. Although in fairness, if it weren't for the vigilance and advocacy of our community, some would not have been funded or funded less than they are today. Some commitments are only partially implemented, and some were not implemented at all, meaning that the implementation deadlines have passed, and there's no indication they will be funded. We have been told that lack of funding was due to City Council's decision to implement budget cuts. I am here to focus on implementation of these unfulfilled critical initiatives already promised to our community in 2015. The commitments not funding or partially funded are hiring a permanent economic partner advisor to work with the economic development staff, which was never implemented. The deadline for that was 2017. ongoing base funding for several parks, forestry, and recreation programming for children and youth. Funding is partial and/or uncertain. I can go into more detail if you're interested. PFNR staff report that our existing youth programs are jammed with participants. The number I heard was 70 youth showing up at basketball programs and could be easily expanded. A city planning design charrette planned for 2016 was never held. While we appreciate the department staff's effort to stretch their meager resources to pay some attention to our community has not yet benefited from the impactful opportunity of a charrette. Toronto is one of the wealthiest cities in Canada with many wealthy residents and home to major corporations. It makes no sense that we have a budget crisis. Why do we have chronic poverty and public services are being threatened? OVNAP urges City Council to make budgetary decisions based on equity, getting resources from those who can afford it, and spending resources on those who could benefit the most. We would like to make 2 recommendations. 1, use the revenue tools available to you to increase funding for crucial programs to strengthen neighborhoods.
You're just about to wrap up?
And 2, expand your financial support and advocacy for community hubs in schools slated for closure. Thank you very much.
Any questions, Councilor Nunziata?
Yeah, just in your deputation, you mentioned that there was a city planning design charrette plan for 2016 was never held. So,
Yeah.
well, what's the reason? Which ward are you in? Who's your councillor?
It's at 11.
Josh Cole.
Josh Cole.
Yeah.
So why
Actually,
was it not held?
the actual neighborhood is shared by 3 councillors, but my councillor is Josh Cole.
So there are really no resources that are needed for a planning charrette.
Well, not according to the budget. The documents of the allocation for a charrette was something like, I think it was about $70,000. I have the document with me if you want me to.
No,
I'll tell you.
I'm just
But
very
I have the number of the document here in the written deputation that you have.
just I'm very
Yeah.
surprised because I had one in Weston and it didn't cost that.
Well, you know,
So just my second question is, use the revenue tools available to you to, which revenue tools would you recommend?
I'm not an expert in taxation. I know that this has been widely, I'm not going to comment on preferable revenue tools, but the only comment I would make is the framework that I would use if I had the power, would be an equity lens. So, in other words, as I said earlier, collect resources from those who can afford it and distribute resources to those who need it the most.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time. Oh, Councilor Mihevik has a question.
Yes. So, Bill, the Economic Development Officer, Recreation, I'm looking at the list, what's called Appendix 3.4, which is a list of $42 million of ads that sooner or later need to be dealt with, and hopefully all of them will get in, if not most of them. But I am wondering, is the Economic Development Officer, is that on this list from your?
Yeah, I should have brought the document with me. Oh, it's not that. Sorry.
Like, I don't see it,
Okay, so in the documents,
capacity.
on November 3rd, City Council approved the Oakwood Bond strategy,
right.
right? And here we have, what was the question again?
I'm trying,
Economic development.
just so to include everyone, I'm looking at the economic development and culture, and there is one line here, local capacity building program, retail areas. Is that?
Well, this is a city document that I have a copy of here. And it says hire a permanent economic partnership advisor.
Okay, so I'm wondering, so maybe you don't know, but I can ask staff later on in the process whether that is this line here, local capacity building program, because then it would be here, which means it's on 3.4. If it's not here in 3.4,
Mr. Worrell, could you just go
Then
back so
it
people,
has
you
to,
can use the microphone there?
it has to be added. It's in addition to the 41.
I'm not sure what that means, Joe.
Yeah, don't worry.
Okay.
But you are aware that these are sometimes following the ball is very complicated.
Absolutely.
And here, there is a line here, but I have no idea if that is that. And if
And
that
it's-
is that, then you fight for this. If it's not this, if that is not this,
Right.
then it's an additional fight to even get it considered.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
I don't want to get too much
we'll
into
work with you on
inside
that.
baseball, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your time. Thanks for your
Thanks.
deputation.
Can I have that though?
Sure. Can you give me back the copy?
Next name I have is Colleen Lynch. Good evening.
Evening.
That's the sort of.
My name is Colleen Lynch, and I live in York Southwest.
Just let me just wait till,
Oh, sure.
you guys just conclude, please.
Yeah.
All right. Can I just have, thank you. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Colleen Lynch, and I live in York Southweston. I'm here to support full funding of Transform TO, Toronto's Climate Action Plan, in the 2018 budget. This is my first time deputing, and I thank you for the opportunity. When we bought our home in Ward 11 in 2003, I loved the trees lining the streets and the big backyards. Since then, in severe weather events, including the ice storm in 2013, a lot of those trees lost branches and even had to come down. When it rained this past summer, we lost our power quite often, almost every time. My backyard swarmed with elder tree bugs, which were rampant in York Region, and my neighbor, a retired farmer, said he couldn't grow food in his garden consistently anymore. Yet, unless we are proactive, things will very likely get worse. Transform TO's plan offers the chance, if we implement it now, for us to be proactive and to create a more positive outlook. What's more, the funding requested at less than $1 per Toronto resident and a small fraction of the overall city budget will pay back significantly. Reacting to the ice storm in 2013 cost the city $106 million. Acting in advance to help mitigate severe weather events is well worth the $2.5 million investment. The plan presents an opportunity to safeguard the future and benefit economically. The Transform TO plan is also important for the well-being of communities. When I moved to Ward 11, I found getting around by transit more difficult, and that we needed to buy a car to access services. My husband's family witnessed the closure of local shops over the years, and now there are a lot of dollar stores and cash advance places nearby, and there is no car share. York Southweston is an impoverished area, I've recently learned, with a quarter of residents living below the poverty line, including 2 and 5 children. And this is where Transform TO is powerful, and it provides intersecting solutions that would make a big difference to neighborhoods like ours. Improvements to social housing, reduced energy costs, local green job creation, and accessible transit alternatives among them. Transform TO integrates with and strengthens current city programs that also move us toward a healthy, prosperous future, and the commendable progress Toronto has already made. The city's Toronto Green Standard for buildings and district energy projects are good examples. But the synergy between Transform TO and Toronto's official plan for complete communities are particularly relevant for York Southweston. The projected future in 2050, if we fully implement the strategies in Transform TO, is a positive vision that my family and I want to be a part of. Walking and biking together in the fresh air, community solar projects channeling sunlight, teleworking in the nearest green space, and sharing items at the local lending station. Let's take every opportunity to realize that hopeful future. To finish, let me reinforce that to meet our climate goals, we need an immediate, heroic, and coordinated effort. Toronto Council, by voting to fully fund Transform TO's action plan, has the chance to play a significant role in that effort and to make a positive difference for the long term. Thanks again for the chance to talk today.
Thank you for coming. Any questions, councilors? No? Councillor Nunziata.
Yeah, Colleen, so you are aware of what the Mount Dennis Community Association has been involved and how we've been moving
Yes,
forward?
it's
Okay.
fabulous.
Yeah.
I just think that it makes sense to coordinate the two together so that we do meet our goals.
So we have taken, Ward 11 has taken the lead on that.
Yes, I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah. So thank you for your contribution.
You're welcome.
Councillor Mihevik.
The proposal that is still unfunded
Yeah.
is for about $2.5 million.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's nothing.
For the task at hand, given global climate change, do you think $2.5 million is A, B, C, D, or E in terms of the amount of money that should be invested?
Oh, it's not. We should invest as much as we can, but the program leverages funding and investment from different levels of the government and from different programs that are already operating. So the 2.5 is what they need to sort of coordinate all of that and to push it as far as it needs to go. And so it's not just the 2.5 million.
So
Ask. Yeah.
you think that that's a good ask for this
It is.
first year?
It seems to be appropriate according to what they're
Okay,
suggesting.
thank you.
Thanks for coming and speaking to us. So the next deputants I have are from Elmley Junior School, Banu Chodisetti, Sophia Shepes, and Nudad Udin. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Banu Chodisetti. I'm representing Elmley Junior School in Ward 2. I'm a coordinator from Elmley since June 2014 and serve morning meal every day with 3 food groups. To more than 450 students every year, I'm very proud to say that the program is universal and work to accommodate most allergies and respect the religious food restrictions of the students. This program receives funding from city and province. Today, I would like to introduce my students, Sophia and Nuhad, who are studying in grade 5 and would like to speak few words about the nutrition program in Elmley.
Good evening. My name is Nuhad and I will be talking about why the morning meal program is important and other topics related to the program. The morning meal program is ran by Miss Banu. The way the program works at Elmley is every morning, students from a class go to the staff room. Every day, different students from different classes help out. In the staff room, every class has a plastic box, which says how many students are in that class and the classroom number. The students that go to the staff room distribute food according to the number of students in every class. Once the box has all the food needed, one student gives that box to the classroom that is indicated on the box. Some of the snacks provided include yogurt, apple juice, crackers, and many more. The program is important to the students of Elmley because sometimes students from Elmley are still hungry when they come to school. So if they're hungry, they can eat food from the program. If the program were to be canceled, then most of the students would be unhappy because some students won't have a full stomach, which will cause them not to try their hardest during school hours. Some benefits of having a healthy meal in the morning are students will have enough energy to participate in class and do daily activities such as recess, gym, or drama. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sophia and I'm here to talk about the morning meal program at Alma Junior School. The morning meal program is ran by Miss Banu. Miss Banu has student helpers from different classes that help her arrange the foods. How it works is, in the morning, different students come and measure the quantities of food according to the class and how many students they have. We collect food to put in the bins to be sent to the classes. It is very important that we have a morning meal because some students come to school hungry. Therefore, morning meal will give students a full stomach to ensure they have a full energy so that they can learn and be alert at all times. All the food we have are healthy, nutritious foods. We have foods such as fresh vegetables, cheese, yogurt, milk, apple juice, and fruits, and sometimes the odd treat. The morning meal program is a great way to start the day. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Well, that was very well done. I think you two, right? My daughter went to Elmley for a period of time. It's a very, very nice school. And I think you two should become city councilors because you were on message.
Ward 4? In
They
Ward
were
4?
maybe not my ward, but you were you were right on point and you were very succinct. That means you were brief. And that is something that is rare at city council. So you're to be commended.
Thank you.
You stuck to your 5 minutes.
They were well inside the 5
Yeah,
minutes.
within
Yeah.
the, yes.
Councillor Mihevik has a question.
Yes, a question for any of you. Do you folks help in the distribution of the food, or do you also help in the preparation of the food?
They help they help to distribute the food because I don't have volunteers. I prep the food.
You prep the food alone?
I prep the food by myself.
And are you a volunteer?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm a coordinator. So I run the program,
Right.
but I'm volunteering only.
Right. So you're not paid. This is all a work of love.
Yeah.
Very good.
Great, thank you. And what will the increase, if we do an inflation increase, what does it mean in terms of, do you have a September to June, or do you cheat by, say, cutting it from October to February? Like some groups I understand aren't able to operate for 10 months, so they operate for 8 months.
I operate for 10 months.
10 months, Monday to Friday?
Yes.
Every day?
Every day. 5 days a week.
Wow.
Every day, 3 food groups. And 1 dairy, 1 whole wheat, and 1 fresh vegetables.
How do you have other volunteers that help you with this?
No, I don't have any volunteers. These kids are my volunteers.
Wow. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Nunziata.
Yeah. So do you get any contributions at all from some of the parents in the school?
Yeah, parents contribute, but it's minimum. Like
Yeah.
some parents even can't afford anything. So I get like very less, not even for 1 day.
But do they volunteer at all?
Sorry?
Do they volunteer, any of the parents?
No, I don't have parent volunteers, so only I take help of students.
Oh, so none of the parents volunteer at all in the program?
No, because it is a French immersion, plus they have their own problems. So
Oh, okay, thank you.
So I have a question. So Nuhad, do you get does the food in the morning and then also at lunch, or when do you get the food?
It's only in the morning.
It's only in the morning. And what? So you Sophia, you mentioned what kind of foods are involved? Is it different foods every day?
Yeah.
It is different foods every day.
Right.
Some, like, we have a different food every day of the week,
Right.
and usually don't have the same food twice a week.
Okay. And you get juice?
Yes.
Juice. Okay. And you're both in grade 5?
Yes.
Where are you going to school next year?
Hilltop.
Hilltop. Okay, good. That's a good school. My daughter went to Hilltop too. Very good. Yeah. So the French is going well.
Yes.
That's good. Très bien. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for coming. That's great. You did a very good job. Thank you. Are there any other members of the community that would like to come and speak to the committee? No? Okay. So,
Yeah, there is.
yes? Okay. Just come on down and tell us who you are. That was really good. Kids are cute. Hi there.
Hello. My name is Jay Robertson. I'm a resident of Ward 11 in the Pritchard Avenue area. I'm also with a group called Black Creek Alliance. I also worked on the Gaffney Park project. As a resident, thank you for letting me speak, by the way. Thank you. It's been a long day for me, so I'm a little tired. My concentration's not 100%. The first thing I want to talk about is we're talking about environmental issues with the earlier speaker has with the issues we have. We're primarily concerned with the Black Creek area, Lavender Creek area of our area. It is a floodplain, and we've been working with a group to try to renaturalize, preserve, and also help prevent floods from happening, because we believe an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Our councillor, Frances Nunziata, has been very cooperative with us, and she's been at every event we've had. We've had tremendous community support. It is growing. We're trying to look at protecting and also regreening the space, and also looking ahead to the future, because climate change is not coming, it is here. The weather changes are here, it's a reality, and it's good to do green initiatives, but it's also we have to look at preserving ourselves towards the next big flood. If Hurricane Hazel happened tomorrow, we could think about the disaster. There's computer models that would show a large portion of Ward 11 would be underwater, especially around the Jane Street. Jane Street would be completely underwater around Alliance Avenue. It would be a very bad disaster. We have to look ahead to preventing and making ourselves stronger so we're ready to be more resilient. But this also goes hand in hand with development, with improving our green spaces and making them better for everybody around us. We can have improved bike trails, which improve transportation, which is another green thing, but it gets more people onto their bicycles and walking and enjoying the green space. But it also helps us prepare for the next big disaster. Weather, climate change, we see it all around us. It's here. We felt it last week. It was really cold. Now it's warm. This is going to continue. I do work for the city, and we are preparing in different, not particularly in this department with the Toronto Transit Commission, but we do prepare for disasters. And I think by looking ahead to our development and responsible development of our green spaces, improving what we have and making it better, working with green spaces, we can actually help mitigate these larger disasters that will come. It's not going to be long before the next hurricane hits us. Everybody thinks it's 64 years in the past. It can happen again. And as far as we're looking also, there's the councilor's been working with us in trying to redirect, I think it's Section 57 money. 37, yeah. Thank you. Sorry for, I didn't know that. To help develop these park areas. Also, by improving our green spaces, we're a very good and growing neighborhood. Yes, we are the lower income neighborhood of the city, but we're growing rather rapidly and fast. And we really need to have smart growth, smart guidance in that growth, especially along the St. Clair corridor, the Weston Road corridor. These places are growing rapidly. The property values are going up rapidly, and there's going to be increased taxation. So there is going to be funds available through the Section 37 money, and having it go to the right things that helps the community is going to be very important over the next few years. We need to also think about, as our neighborhood increases in value, we do have to think, and the homeless I think is a big issue on this as well, is that we need to accommodate social housing into there, not just shelters. Shelters are a stopgap based on the Victorian model of workhouses. We have to start thinking about affordable housing. In my neighborhood alone, and this happened over the last few months, there's a small rooming houses here, there, and everywhere. Well, they're being sold. Developers are buying them, and we need to start thinking about more space for them. I hope in the budget we can look at something similar to, and this is, I'm speaking as just a member of the community, that we can look at something along the New York model where they had condo developers, almost like a Section 37 fund, to help fund for housing or affordable housing within these larger condo units. I don't know if you're familiar with how they do it in New York, but it's about, if you have 100 units, 3 of them will be actually affordable housing.
Inclusionary zoning, it's called.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking at the situation we have to start thinking more proactive. As a city council, as a taxpayer, as a voting resident, I would like to have my city council less reactive and more proactive when it comes to things like the environment and when it comes to things like our homeless issue, which has become a crisis, which we didn't see it coming, but, we could do better. We also could do better in the environment. Green initiatives are good, but we also have to think about getting ourselves ready to have the fortifications to get through the next big disaster.
Can I just ask you to wrap up quickly, please?
I'm wrapping up quickly. Anyway, at the conclusion, I just want to thank Councillor Nunziata. She has been very supportive on our programs. We have tremendous development in Gaffney Park and improved our neighborhood, and hopefully we can devote more money to improving our neighborhood in a smart development manner. Thank you for your time.
Super. Okay. Councillor Mihevik?
You mentioned that St. Clair's developing nicely along, I guess, did you mean by the Jane area?
Well, St. Clair, there's mostly between Scarlett and Jane is developing. We're getting a lot of rumors in the neighborhood. I'm not privy to everything there. The council would be much more adept at that. The old Daniel leather factory building. There's considerable development going in there in townhouses, and it's great. It's lovely. It's going to be a great for our community. But,
okay, so here's the question. Do you think that the St. Clair streetcar should be extended over to Jane and or Scarlett?
We
Yes.
tried that.
Francis
and
is
they
gonna
said-
I can't, I have to just, I am an employee of the TTC, and I would be talking as a private citizen
As a
only.
private citizen.
I have to qualify that because you asked a question that's in my ballpark. Yes, it should be extended and there should be a loop at the end. Yes, that would actually eliminate 2 bus routes, more buses everywhere else. And it would save us money in the long run. Sometimes a little capital spending up front would save us capital in the long run. But that's my personal opinion. It would redo 2 bus routes. Yes, it would definitely be worthwhile.
Do you think you're representing the community in saying that, or is this just?
Yes, I
opinion?
do. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Without a
okay.
doubt, the streetcar should be brought down to loop closer to Scarlet.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, question on that. As Councillor Mihevik knows, we did an environmental assessment on that 10 years ago, and the environmental assessment said no to that. That's why there was the delay in the bridge, Joe. You remember that?
Are you, Councillor Nunziata,
Yes.
can you please
Oh, no, I
ask
don't
the
remember
deputy?
that.
and
Councillor Mihevik?
Ask the deputy
I
a
don't
question.
remember that one, but
Yes,
whatever.
Councillor Mihevik, you were on council with Howard Moscow. Do you remember that, 10 years ago? Question to Jay. Thank you for coming, Jay. Just on that point, you know that there was an environmental assessment done on St. Clair, and the environmental assessment came back. This was 10 years ago.
That was 10 years ago, yeah, I
It
was
was
there.
not possible, and that's why the St. Clair and Scarlet Road Bridge was delayed for 10 years, because we're waiting for that environmental assessment.
Okay.
Yes. Just on your point, so you are aware that we have a shelter that's going up at St. Clair Manamee?
Yes, we are.
Right. And then there's another shelter going up as well.
Okay, I'm not aware of a second one.
Yeah, there is a second one. Also, are you aware that we have actually, in Ward 11, we have 4 applications in for affordable housing?
No, I'm not aware of them. I would welcome affordable housing. The shelter model, the model we're currently working on, that's based on an 1800s model, it's got to go. We have to start thinking differently about this problem. And throwing more shelters, more shelter beds would an increasing problem. The problem is people can't afford to have a place to live. If you
these
want
are
to
not-
eliminate homelessness, you got to give them a place they can afford to.
Yeah, but these are not shelters, these are apartments.
Affordable apartments, I 100%
Yeah.
support that.
Yeah, there's 4 applications
Yeah.
in Ward 11.
Increasing shelter space is a stopgap.
Yeah.
It's not solving the problem. It's prolongating the problem, and all you're going to do is dive yourself into a deeper and deeper hole. It's like going to one of these high interest lenders. You're going to keep going into this, and you're going to dig yourself into a pit that you're just not going to come out of. You need to start thinking. For every dollar you spend on shelter work, you should be spending $2 on affordable housing. Eliminate the problem. Because we're going to go into a deeper deficit trying to keep shelters going and employ a bunch of people doing this if we don't get the affordable housing problem fixed.
So rather than invest in shelters, we should be, and I agree with you, building more affordable housing.
100%. I think any logical person would see it, and I think if you had an accountant or actuary actually look at the numbers on that, that's the way we should be going. There is no. We're just diving into a very big money pit which the city is going to be continually trying to fund. And I say, now we know where I work. A lot of the homeless, which I deal with directly, are not always from Toronto. They're coming in from outside because there is these resources that other municipalities aren't providing their fair share of. And I'm only speaking that, I don't want to be cruel, but some municipalities around us are not doing what they should be. They're coming here for the resources. We should be sharing it as a region, not as a municipality. And I think our city is sort of being unfairly burdened by more than it should. I would like to see my councillors look out to more of the municipalities around us to help support us in these efforts.
Now, you mentioned the floodplain and Hurricane Hazel.
Councillor Nunziata, please speak into the microphone.
And Councillor
You're the
Mihevik is
speaker. You're
quite...
the speaker of the City of Toronto. You know the importance of being heard.
Yes, Councillor Mihevik is quite aware because he was on your council.
Start right here.
You start right
yes,
there.
this was
And
home
Councillor
turf.
Mihevik was my deputy mayor.
That's back before there was an affordable housing crisis.
So,
Oh, yes.
so when you talk about the Black Creek and all the that whole property with the floodplain along Alliance and the channel and that, and what the group is doing, the Black Creek group is doing, is to get an investment in there to preserve all that space that we have, and
Yes,
for cycling and as well as for pedestrians, correct?
Preserving, cleaning up for community use, as well as looking ahead to help us mitigate any large flood or rain event like we had in 2013. I say the next Hurricane Hazel is coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, interesting comments about, the city's trouble with the housing crisis. Of course, that, obviously you probably recognize it's a bit of a provincial issue that has to be tackled as well, right?
Absolutely, Councillor. I say, and I don't want to be like passing the buck, but I think we have to look at this as a regional issue, not as a Toronto issue. And our neighbors need to help us out here on this one.
So I'm curious, what do you do with the TTC?
I'm a supervisor in station operations and station management.
Okay.
So anything that goes wrong in the subway system, I look after.
Beautiful.
Currently a manager in the Presto Fairgate installations.
Excellent. How's that going?
I don't want to comment on that.
It's coming along, right?
I will have it done. I will have the job done in March.
Good. You have two councillors that are commissioners on the TTC here.
I
so,
know,
yeah.
that's what's making me very nervous.
Oh,
But
big- Listen,
I
we're
will say it,
both
I'll
big
take
fans
confidence.
of-
I'm doing my best, and believe me, we're watching every dime at the TTC.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Okay. Thank you very much for your deputation. Okay, so is there anyone else that would like to say a few words? Okay, don't see anybody. All right, so we have a motion that the Budget Subcommittee for Etobicoke, East York, and York Civic Center consultation receive for information the public presentations and communications submitted by members of the public. All in favor? Okay, so that does it for us tonight. Thank you all very much for coming out from the wilds of almost northern Etobicoke and environs beyond. Thank you very much.